Hello everyone, and welcome to another exciting video by Jeremy James Prudzik. In Season 2 of Camp Cretaceous, we were introduced to the villainous Mitch and Tiff, two big game hunters that posed a threat to the dinosaurs of Isla Nublar. Mitch and Tiff hunted for pleasure, and they enjoyed every bit of it. But they're definitely not the only hunters we've seen in the Jurassic Park franchise, because if you remember from The Lost World, you'll remember one of the greatest characters in the movie, as well as the entire franchise, Roland Tembo. The man who personified the desire for adventure, who also happens to be a big game hunter. Not too long ago, someone asked me a very interesting question about these characters that I couldn't answer at the time, because honestly, I didn't have an answer. So here's the question, quote, "I know you like Roland Tembo, but he wanted to kill the buck T-Rex and have his head. How come you like him but not Mitch and Tiff?" End quote. You know what? That is a very good question. Why would I like someone like Roland Tembo, but not Mitch and Tiff? I mean, they're all big game hunters who wanted to kill dinosaurs for personal gain, right? Sure, if you just go by that one fact, then yeah, it wouldn't make sense for me to like any of these characters. But there's so much more to look at than just the fact that they're all big game hunters, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about Roland Tembo from The Lost World, as well as Mitch and Tiff from Camp Cretaceous. I'm going to describe them and compare them as characters, and tell you why I like Roland Tembo more. So let's get started. And we'll start with Exhibit A. The man, the legend, Roland Tembo. Roland was a man of adventure who loved the thrill of the hunt, and he had hunted just about every animal there is. And that was the problem. There was nothing left for him to do. He was bored with life and missed the thrill of the hunt. But when Ajay tells him about an island with dinosaurs and a chance to hunt a T-Rex, that old spark is reignited once again. Roland was about to embark on what could possibly be the greatest adventure of his life. And that was his motivation, the thrill of the adventure. The more dangerous, the better. Don't forget, Peter Ludlow offered Roland lots of money in exchange for his services, but he declined. Roland wasn't interested in money. All he wanted to do was hunt the T-Rex. Since Roland had never been to Isla Sorna, he prepared by studying maps of the island in order to understand its geography. He understood the notion of a game trail, and how carnivores hunted the herbivores there. And he also understood how to track animals using his natural surroundings. He knew exactly where to look for dinosaurs right away, and other than pronouncing the dinosaurs' names wrong, Roland's first hunt went on without a hitch. Roland knew what he was doing. Why? Because wherever he went to hunt, he knew that he was in the animals' territory, their home, their turf, so he had to play by their rules. Roland knew that every hunt he went on could be his last, and he accepted that. In fact, he embraced it. To further illustrate my point, let's take a look at the famous deleted scene in The Lost World where Roland is chatting with Ajay at a bar. Roland says, quote,
"True hunter doesn't mind if the animal wins."
End quote. Another thing that makes Roland stand out as a character is his humility. He wasn't cocky or brash, and he never acted like he was untouchable. Roland was humble, and the proof of that can be found in this quote, quote,
"Somewhere on this island is the greatest predator that ever lived. Second greatest predator must take him down."
End quote. Roland acknowledged the T-Rex as the greatest predator, while he saw himself as the second greatest predator. He knew his place in the food chain, unlike some other people like Dieter Stark or even Wheatley who tormented dinosaurs just for fun. Roland was a man of honor, integrity, and chivalry. Again, referring back to the deleted scene, an obnoxious customer at the bar was harassing the waitress. Now, if there was one thing that Roland couldn't stand, it was seeing a defenseless person getting picked on. So he decided to step in and kick the guy's ass. And he did it with one hand tied behind his back, too. So Roland's also a badass, too. The last thing I'd like to point out about Roland is his compassion and selflessness. Now, there was a brief moment when Roland was a bit of an asshole when he made light of Eddie Carr's death by casually saying, quote,
"Rex just fed, so he won't stalk us for food."
End quote. But even still, Roland had a lot of compassion because his main concern was the safety of everyone. Even though he didn't see eye to eye with Malcolm and his group, especially with Nick Van Owen, Roland was willing to put his differences aside and work together to find the worker village and call for rescue. And throughout their journey, he frequently checked up on everyone to make sure they were okay. For example, he asked Sarah if she was injured because of the blood on her shirt, and when Dieter disappeared, he wanted to make sure nobody told Kelly about it so she wouldn't get scared. And throughout the entire movie, he wasn't obsessed or consumed by his desire to hunt the T-Rex, like how Captain Ahab was obsessed with killing the whale in Moby Dick. It's kind of ironic that I referenced Moby Dick just now, because Nick Van Owen specifically refers to Roland as Ahab later on in the film. But in all honesty, Roland's not like Ahab at all. Roland was not willing to put people in harm's way to get what he wanted. Ahab was. But to get back on track here, Roland displayed selflessness and compassion, but the most significant scene of Roland's compassion is his final scene. Even though Roland succeeded in hunting the T-Rex, Ajay died in the chaos. Roland was so broken-hearted at the loss of his friend that hunting the T-Rex didn't matter to him anymore. It's this scene that sort of pushes Roland towards the side of good in the end, although through unfortunate circumstances. Overall, Roland was a character that had many outstanding qualities, which in my opinion makes him more of an anti-hero rather than a villain, even though he was working with Peter Ludlow. Roland Tembo is undoubtedly one of the best. So now that I've talked about Roland Tembo, let's take a look at Exhibit B, Dumb and Dumber. Mitch and Tiff from Camp Cretaceous. Upon their introduction, Mitch and Tiff appear to be ecotourists looking to photograph rare and exotic wildlife. And what better place to see rare, exotic wildlife than on an island with dinosaurs? This sounds like the perfect opportunity for them, especially Mitch, because he was highly interested in dinosaurs, being a self-proclaimed dinosaur nerd. He even referred to craniofacial biting from T-Rexes, and if you look closely, he even wore a necklace of a trilobite, which may not be a dinosaur, but it's still something prehistoric. Mitch may not have known as much about dinosaurs as Darius did, but he still seemed to know more than the average person. Because of this, Mitch was able to use this to his advantage to win over Darius's trust. And it worked. At first. Of course, it didn't take long for Mitch and Tiff to show their true colors. They were very evasive about the gear they packed, which led Brooklyn to believe that they might not be who they said they were. Sure enough, Darius discovered the truth when he snuck in their yurt and found all kinds of weapons, as well as the severed head of a Sinoceratops. Of course, Mitch tries to justify their actions under the delusion that because of them, the dinosaurs would live on forever, when in reality, Mitch just wanted to decorate his man cave with dinosaur heads. They already killed a Sinoceratops, but that wasn't enough. They wanted all the dinosaurs. Mitch and Tiff were simply greedy. They weren't doing all this for the thrill of the hunt, they were in it for the trophies and the ego boost. You know who they remind me of? Simon Bonesteel from the TV show Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation. I know that's a pretty silly example, and there's a ton of other people I could have mentioned, so if you don't know who Simon Bonesteel is, that's okay. And if you do know, consider this a 90s throwback. Simon Bonesteel was a quirky yet hardcore hunter who killed lots of endangered species to make money off of them on the black market. Yes, his character is essentially a parody, but it works well for the topic of this video. Just to show you what kind of guy Simon Bonesteel is, here's a couple of clips.
Listen to me, you sweat stain! I have hacked elephant ivory from here to Timbuktu! I have put you baby seal pelts, dolphin hides, mountain gorilla skulls! I am Simon Bonesteel, greatest hunter on the face of this big blue marble. Rights. The only rights an animal has is the right to shut up and get shot!
Who does this remind you of? Moving on, the way Mitch and Tiff went about their hunt on Isla Nublar just goes to show the complete disregard they have for animals. They were essentially trespassing into a zoo, a place under UN quarantine no less, and killing whatever they wanted. That's just straight up poaching. It's not that different from what was seen in the Disney movie The Fox and the Hound, for instance, where Amos the Hunter broke into a game preserve to try to kill Todd the Fox. In addition to their poaching on Isla Nublar, there's even more evidence to suggest that Mitch and Tiff have a history of poaching. When Darius learns the truth about Mitch and Tiff, Mitch mentions that he bought an ACU tablet off the black market. Later on, Mitch refers to the tigers, hippos, and snow leopards they've killed in the past. So if you consider that Mitch and Tiff bought from the black market and killed animals, it's possible that they sold on the black market as well. Speaking of the ACU tablet, Mitch and Tiff had practically no knowledge of Isla Nublar other than the fact that Jurassic World and dinosaurs were there. They solely relied on the tablet to track the dinosaurs for them, but since the power grid was down, they had to rely on Darius to show them where the dinosaurs were. When Darius got away from them, Mitch and Tiff were completely lost, traipsing through the jungle without any technological help. Mitch and Tiff were complete morons. Not only were they over-dependent on technology, they were also careless. For example, even though they knew that the power grid came back on, Tiff still touched the electric fence with her bare hands. As for Mitch, he set a trap, but he forgot where he set it, and got caught in it. Mitch got caught in his own trap. So Mitch and Tiff were greedy and careless morons, but that's not all. They were borderline psychotic. Tiff in particular. I'll show you. Let's take a look at this scene from Season 2, Episode 8 of Camp Cretaceous. Tiff is getting more and more angry, and Mitch assures her that she'll feel much better once she gets to shoot some dinosaurs. When all of a sudden, Grim the Baryonyx appears to fend off these intruders and runs straight at them. Without any hesitation and without even flinching, Tiff grabs the gun from Mitch, takes aim at the charging dinosaur, and bang, shoots Grim dead. Right after that, she felt calm, relaxed, and said she felt better. She felt better. Her anger subsided after she killed something. Now some might argue that Tiff killed Grim in self-defense, but the fact that she felt gratified by doing it? Not to get too far off topic, but is Tiff someone you really want to be around when she's angry, especially when she has a gun in her hands?
Violence and technology, not good bedfellows.
So now that I've discussed Mitch and Tiff, let's wrap up this video with the final comparison and summary. Roland, Mitch, and Tiff were all hunters that wanted to hunt dinosaurs for themselves, and that's about all they had in common. Each of these groups are very different from each other. Roland only wanted to hunt one dinosaur. Mitch and Tiff wanted to hunt them all. Roland was not obsessed with hunting to the point of endangering the lives of others. Mitch and Tiff were. Roland hunted for the thrill of the adventure. Mitch and Tiff hunted for trophies and bragging rights. Yes, Roland did have hunting trophies of his own, but he mainly did it for the thrill of the adventure rather than the trophies. Roland relied on his wits and nature to track animals. Mitch and Tiff relied on a tablet. Mitch and Tiff were careless. Now granted, Roland was careless for leaving his gun next to Nick Van Owen, and that did cause problems later on. But Roland wasn't stupid enough to get caught in his own trap like Mitch was. Roland was humble, selfless, and compassionate. Mitch and Tiff were neither of those things. In my opinion, it's night and day. Overall, Roland was just a much better character in general compared to Mitch and Tiff. And the fact that Jurassic Park fans as well as myself are still talking about Roland Tembo today just goes to show how awesome he is, how awesome he was, and how awesome he always will be. And on that note, this concludes another video by Jeremy James Pruchik. Which of these characters do you like best, and why? Did I miss anything worth mentioning? Talk about it in the comments and have some fun. Thank you for watching. If you want to see more Jurassic content, you can find lots more of it on my channel. And if you want to keep seeing more Jurassic content, subscribe. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.